Namaskar, welcome back. This week was the grim milestone of 50 years of India's emergency. Programs were observed all over the country, trying to remind people why it is important to remember this dark chapter of independent India, while the opposition said the government is holding these events only because it wants to deflect attention from its own failures. Most importantly, a senior-most RSS functionary questioned the relevance of having secular and socialist, which were inserted in the preamble of the Constitution during the emergency, which triggered a national debate during the week. So, let's move on to our guest for this weekend, a power-packed panel to discuss this very sensitive issue. I have here with me in the DD studios, Tehseen Poonawalla, law-knowing, also a political analyst known to speak his mind strongly on every issue. Also joining me, Ratan Sharda, well-known author, believes in the RSS ideology and has written profusely on the subject. And another senior law-knowing person, Hitesh Jain, joining us from Mumbai. Welcome all gentlemen, let's start. And Ratan Sharda ji, allow me to come to you first, sir. Why is it important for the nation, that too an emerging power like India, to keep dwelling for days with so many events on something which happened 5 decades ago and keep reminding the people of the pain, the horrors, when the country seems to have moved on? Is the charge being leveled on the BJP, its allies, and all those who are trying to, observe these events over the emergency?
So first of all, let me remind the viewers what RSS chief said after the emergency horror was over. When he came out of the jail, he said, forgive and forget. He said, let us not get into witch hunt, let us not get into revenge mode, because it's our own people and we should move ahead. So from that, if you look at RSS never tried to exploit the emergency beyond the time when it was very active. When 90% of the people who were in the struggle, who were in jail, were RSS people. They gave their all to get the emergency removed, but still RSS chief said this. Now why it is being raised now? Because there are people in the opposition who are trying to tell us that these are emergency days. They don't know what emergency meant. They have never understood what emergency meant because they were probably on the other side, or now they are on the other side. So they understand. Emergency is not what you see, because 106 people died in jail because they were not given medical care. There were hundreds of people never given parole when somebody died in the family, somebody fell sick. And most of the people who died in jail were the people who never got a chance of medical aid, including Pandurang Rao Kshirsagar, one of the very senior RSS people. And what does emergency mean? Just to give an idea, emergency में किस तरह की सजा मिलती थी? What was the torture which was not mandated by the law? Still, that is what was carried on by many people. And then I'll talk about the mindset of emergency, why it is important to keep on reminding. So, किस तरह की सजाएं दी जाती? Continuous abuse, गंदी गालियाँ, reducing the people to naked and then giving them all kind of torture, not allowing to sleep, burn the bodies with cigarette and a candle, make them like aeroplane and twist them around in the police station, hit them on the sexual organs, and put them mirchi and all. So there are so many things, electric shocks, hanging them upside down the tree, and jumping on their food and all that. So I will not go further, it's too macabre. Now what is the mindset? So all this was taken by the people and they suffered. The issue was how easy it is to manipulate the constitution. The MISA law was passed way back in 1971, much before the actual emergency was installed, so they knew they are going to use it. Indira ji in 1975 February said, some countries have given up democracy to implement policies, this is correct, to create the foundation of progress. In 1950 in Kenya, she said the same thing. In 1974, the attack on the media started, and if I had to just recall some of the attacks, the Tribune van was attacked, this is before emergency. Then their editor Shankar Lal was murdered, then peddler editor Shivaram Sharma was killed, Malayalam Manora editor was attacked, and Amrit Bazar Patrika Tushar Kanti Ghosh was threatened for life. And all this was done in the name of securing the country. Now, if this is the kind of things that happen in emergency, I'm not even talking of inserting the preamble or, 42nd Amendment. A.N. Ray was appointed
we'll
as
come
Chief
to that,
Justice.
sir.
Just
Sir,
1 minute.
yes,
So
yes,
this
yes,
was
please make your
preparation for
point.
emergency. A.N. Ray comes to Supreme Court superseding 3 judges in 1973. So ground was prepared. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, so we'll come to the judiciary as well as what were the far-reaching consequences of the 42nd Amendment. But before that, quickly coming to Tehsin Poonawalla here. Tehsin Poonawalla, it's okay for the Congress to say that Narendra Modi is trying to divert and deflect attention by raising so much about the emergency. But Ratan Sharda says it is necessary to remind people of what the actual emergency was all about, because the opposition wants to cry emergency every time there is even the smallest, the most minor incident anywhere in the country.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I heard the RSS supporter very, very intently. I am not willing to take lectures from the RSS on the Constitution of India and the emergency. I am ready to discuss the emergency, and it must be discussed. It must never be forgotten. It was a dark day in India's democracy. But the RSS will not come on TV and give me moral lectures or give this nation. The
Okay,
RSS, please, you never interrupted. And please, kindly give me, kindly give me the same courtesy. I request you, kindly give me the same courtesy. The question is, look, I broke my flow. The question is, the RSS that opposed the Indian Constitution, that called the Indian Constitution imported, that said that Manusmriti should be the Indian Constitution, that opposed my tricolour, I am not going to take lectures from them. The emergency was a dark day. It shouldn't have happened. But the emergency was a constitutional provision in the Constitution of India that was implemented, and it was wrong. It was anti-democratic, not anti-constitution at that time. After that, the provision was removed. What is happening today in our nation? Everything that Ratanji spoke, everything. Journalists being jailed are being jailed today. Activists being tortured are being tortured today. Today, we know how there is pressure on civil society. We know how laws are passed in parliament. The farm laws, for example, parliamentarians weren't given the right for their votes to be dissected so that we know whether the vote had passed or no, on a voice vote. Today what is happening, which is not a provision of emergency, but the constitution and the judiciary is being suppressed, is what we must also address. We must never forget the emergency because it was a dark day, but not forget what's happening today in our nation. And I repeat, I will not take lectures from the RSS that oppose the constitution of my great nation and say the Manusmriti should be put.
Well, we'll get to Ratan Sharda on that, but quickly, Tehsin, my original question remains unanswered. Why is the Congress so cagey? Why is it so edgy about talking about the emergency? They get uncomfortable every time.
No, this is the perception media sets up. And I'm sorry, this is exactly what I'm saying, media under pressure. I'm not making it personal, I'm saying this. The media setting this up. The Congress has formally apologized for it. Mrs. Indira Gandhi onwards, every Congress leader has apologized for it. Rahul Gandhi has apologized for it. The Congress has in its official communique said it was wrong. It may have been constitutional, it was anti-democratic. Okay. Now I am, just a second, 30 seconds since you asked me a question. Will Ratan Sharda ji apologize for what Golwalkar said about our constitution? Will Hitesh, a very good lawyer, apologize for what's happening? Father Stein, the way, I don't agree with these leftists, but the way he died in our prisons in Mumbai, not being given a sipper. I had called up the then IG prisons, at least give him a sipper. Will you all apologize for that? Will you all apologize for journalists in jail today?
All right, that's a lot of queries. Ratan Sharda ji, a quick comeback on this, sir, so that we can move on to other issues.
See, when the constitution was made, a lot of people talked about constitution, criticized it. Does that make them anti-constitution? No, because it was democratic process and one has to criticize when required. I'll give you just one example and give 3 names who actually said what I'm speaking now. Damodar Swarup said the constitution in 5th of November 1948. We see the constitutions of United States, America, Britain have been copied in this constitution. Some articles have been borrowed from the constitution of Ireland, Australia, Canada. A paper has rightly remarked that this is a slavish imitation of constitution of these countries. Then there is Sardar Hukum Singh who made similar observations, who said in fact that Government of India Act 35 has been copy-pasted as a constitution of India. Then you have Shankarav Dev giving similar kind of views on this constitution. There is Mr. Mohani who said that what is this constitutional assembly? Hindus voted for Hindus, Muslims voted for Muslims. This is a communal assembly. This is not constitutional assembly. So how can we have a secular constitution? This is by Mr. Mohani. I will keep on giving examples. RSS accepts the constitution. You read Guruji's letter to the government. in 1948-49. So to say, keep on saying RSS opposed, I want to know which RSS member ever said Manusmriti with the constitution.
Yes,
Somebody may have said, I do not know.
that.
But I'm very sure RSS never said it, and RSS accepted the tricolor. RSS people died for tricolor, right from 1947, 48 in Kashmir, in Punjab, in Goa, and 1942. If all this is done by the RSS, that means it respects tricolor. It considers Bhagavad as very important. Doesn't mean that I am not accepting tricolor, and nor I can say that RSS doesn't respect constitution. Tell me one law which RSS forced on the Indian constitution which is only for Hindus. Give me one example where BJP passed a law which is purely for Hindus or against Muslims. So this being the case, these are just wild accusations done by the opposition to cover up their own highly pro-Islam, pro-minority, anti-Hindu stance all these years.
Okay, I'll just add. Tehseen, I'm afraid this is going to get unending, but I'll give you a few seconds to quickly retort if you have any points on that. But let me just add, if somebody has pointed out, portions of the constitution which were inspired by constitutions of different countries in the world, to have an academic opinion on that, and something like the emergency surely cannot be equated, can we?
1 second. First, I was challenged. When did the RSS oppose the constitution? After the constitution came into being. November 30th, 1949, in its editorial and organizers, just 4 days after the Constituent Assembly got the constitution, adopted our constitution. I won't go into the whole detail, but they said, to this day, the laws as enunciated in the Manusmriti excite the admiration of the world and elicit obedience and conformity. This is the RSS. 1950, January 25th, on the eve of India becoming a republic, Sankar Subha Iyer in his article, Manu Rules Our Hearts in the Organizer demands that Manusmriti be enacted as the new law of the land, reinforcing the RSS rejection of the constitution. But let me go to what Guru Golwalkar says, apart from rejecting the caste-based reservations, which our Prime Minister speaks about. Golwalkar says, we must cry a complete halt to forming groups based on caste, creed, etc. and demanding exclusive rights and privileges and services, financial aids, admissions to educational institutes, etc. To talk and think in terms of minorities, he's talking about Dalits, SC, ST, OBCs, and community should totally put an end to this in Bunch of Thoughts, Volume 2, 1966 from the RSS website.
All right,
now, you guys will have no right to tell us about the constitution. We refuse to listen to you.
All right, I think this will become unending if we go on about what RSS supporters or leaders wrote in the past on every issue.
But
there has been churning.
No, there just one point. I will not take long, just 5 seconds.
Quickly, please. Yeah.
Marathwada initiative was to be named in the name of Dr. Ambedkar. Who supported it? RSS. Who fought for it? RSS. Who opposed? Congress. For a decade, hundreds died under Congress rule because they refused to name the Marathwada Initiative as Dr. Ambedkar University.
How is this relevant?
Okay, Dr. Ratan Sharda, we must come back.
It supported all the reservations.
We must come back. Tehseen, 1 second. We must come back to the emergency and particularly what transpired this week. So I'll just play a very quick statement by Dattatreya Hosabale, Sarkareva. You can call it the General Secretary in English of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, and why his comments have triggered such a nationwide debate.
आपातकाल के दौरान भारत के संविधान के प्रस्तावना में प्रियम्बल में 2 शब्द जोड़े गए, सेक्युलरिज्म और सोशलिज्म के। वो प्रस्तावना में नहीं थे, पहले प्रियम्बल में नहीं थे। उन 2 शब्दों को जोड़ा है। बाद में इसको निकालने के प्रयत्न हुआ नहीं है। चर्चा हुई, दोनों प्रकार के आर्गुमेंट्स हुए, तो क्या वो रहनी चाहिए प्रस्तावना में? ये विचार होना चाहिए, क्योंकि मैं जानता हूं संविधान के निर्माता डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर जी के नाम जिस भवन पर है, उसमें मैं खड़े होकर बता रहा हूं, ये बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर ने जो संविधान बनाया था, उस के प्रस्तावना में ये 2 शब्द नहीं थे।
Okay, Hitesh Jain, coming to you. Is there any instance ever when the preamble of a constitution has been amended? It's fine to amend the provisions of the constitution, and this was also the 42nd amendment of the country in 76. But to just add to the preamble, is it really unprecedented? And also what Dattatreya Hosabale pointed out, why was it not removed when the 44th amendment was brought or subsequently even if it was added during that period? Quickly.
See, one has to look at this amendment with other amendments that were sought to be introduced right from 38th Amendment to 42nd Amendment. The objective of the amendment was to install an authoritarian one family regime in India. The objective of the amendment was to ensure that there will be authoritarian and dictatorship government and only one family will have a right to rule this country. So from that background, you have to understand the kind of amendments that were introduced, and the amendments were very significant because the 42nd amendments were nothing short than a mini constitution. An effort was made to turn the constitution upside down, and it was basically the constitution was turned on its head. So what are the kind of amendments? That is, the power of judicial review was taken away. I mean, when we are talking about, imagine the consequences. That person is arrested, but he will have no remedy to go to the court. The parliament will pass a unconstitutional law, but the person will not have a right of judicial review to go into the court. The elections of prime minister cannot be challenged before any court of law. Why? Because the election of the Prime Minister earlier was challenged and it was set aside by the Allahabad High Court. We also saw the kind of threats which the judge who was hearing the election petition filed by Rajnarayan, when he was threatened that his wife will not be able to see the light of the day. That was another story that the judge responded to the person who was threatening that my wife is no longer alive. So, then we saw the whole superstition and this whole argument of Congress, when now they are crying that, Baba Sahib's constitution is getting changed or Samvidhan badal raha hai. So, the only time the constitution was amended and the mini constitution was introduced, that was only during the emergency period, and the constitution that was given by Baba Sahib Ambedkar was turned on its head during the period of emergency. Another important thing, when we are talking about undermining of judiciary, in the history of the Supreme Court, the only time the Supreme Court judges were superseded were again during the emergency period. The pliant judges, when we speak about Justice A.N. Ray, he was the person, he was rewarded to take the stand of the government, and all the three judges, senior most judges, who gave a dissenting opinion, they were overruled. When we speak about Justice Khanna, in the case of ADM Jabalpur, when we speak about the basic fundamental human right of going to the Supreme Court for the writ of habeas corpus, he was the lone dissenter. The regime ensured that he will not become the Chief Justice of the country. So this is the emergency era, and it is uncomparable to any of the situation mentioned or criticized by the Congress. The Congress fully knows.
Okay, let's come to Tehseen and have his take on this. Tehseen Poonawalla, isn't it a fact that the emergency was the only time when a term like committed judiciary was introduced in the political lexicon of the country? Nobody had heard of it. And secondly, it is alleged, as Dattatreya Hosabale himself said, there were reasons, very valid reasons why Dr. Ambedkar and others in that Constituent Assembly thought that there was no necessity to add these two terms, which was subsequently added in 76.
There are two issues out here, and Hitesh is one of the best lawyers in the country, but Hitesh is, like all good lawyers, he's only put half the facts out. Yes, there were amendments made, amendments that were subsequently not held up by various benches of the Honorable Supreme Court, except the amendment to the preamble on both secularism and on socialism was held up by a full bench of the Supreme Court. And it's repeatedly been challenged, as recently as 2024, by friends and supporters of RSS who thought this constitution is imported and Manusmriti should be put. And last year, the most honorable Supreme Court again said, and I quote them, that the preamble and socialism and secularism forms the basic structure of our constitution, which can never be amended no matter what kind of a majority you have. Everything else was struck down. Now, if the BJP and the most honorable Prime Minister believe that India is not a socialist and a secular country, the same constitution in which my Prime Minister has taken oath, the Prime Minister should come to Doordarshan News, DD News, and tell you honestly he doesn't believe in it. And we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But you can't run with the wolf and hunt with the hare. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, Ratan Sharda, the point raised here is that this debate that has just been triggered was actually has been going on for decades, and there were challenges in court, but it was believed that this tinkering of the preamble, if I may say, must remain, because there is no reason to remove it, while the rest of the most of the things of the 42nd Amendment were upturned later on.
Just a small point. I clearly spoke about 3 Constituent Assembly members, in fact 4 or 5, who criticized the Constitution, who criticized provision, also criticized the formation of Constitutional Assembly. So it doesn't behoove well for people just to quote RSS on that, because there were different opinions across the spectrum. Now coming to this insertion of socialism and secularism, it's my right to keep on raising the issue, which is totally against the very spirit of the Constitution, because Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar wrote a preamble that is the soul of the Constitution, and we played with the soul of the Constitution in the name of emergency. Now see what happens. Socialism was introduced in 1976. By 1990, Congress buried the socialism in every way possible by introducing total liberalization and total free economy. I am not criticizing the change. I am saying when Ambedkar said that we should not bind our people to something which is their own right, how to decide what kind of economic policies they will follow, by forcing this word socialism, and which was discarded within 15 years by the same government, same party, shows that these are ephemeral things which needed what to be done for the country. As far as secularism is concerned, what kind of definition secularism has must be decided. Are we talking about the secularism which is Indian ethos, or respecting all religions and not having special provisions for minorities as was done in this constitution? Are we talking a Western model of secularism where is a separation of state and the religion? And if we look at the debate, Professor Shibala Saxena raised objection against Article 28, which took away the right of the people to give education, religious education to the people. He said this has secularism gone too far. And what did Nehru tell Gandhi in 1928? He said, I entirely disagree with this viewpoint, and neither do I think the so-called Ram Rajya was good in the past, nor do I think it will be good in the future. Right. This is the kind of view that Nehru held against Gandhiji. So is this kind of debate infructuous? Are we using words which are not defined well? There was no minority word defined in the Constitution. We still had sections in the Constitution. So people will keep on raising issues. They will have their opinion. They will try to arouse the opinion to remind people that all these documents mean only when you use right spirit. If you do the right spirit, Constitution can be mutilated by the people who want to do it. That's what Indiraji did. And as far as he talks of a few journalists, I am very sure that journalists, most of the journalists jailed are those who supported Naxal movement, not non-normal journalists. I will not get on Metutu Meme. I will not give
let's not get into that, sir. That will become unending. Yes. I want to keep on
so
this.
I am just talking.
Yes.
So I am saying, so unless we define secularism, minorities and majority in a way that is equal rights for everybody, we should not use it in an abusive way, which is totally anti-majority and pro-minority, because that is not secularism. That is not what we understand.
Hitesh Jain, very quickly, we do not have much time left. In the context of socialism, it is believed that Dr. Ambedkar said that tomorrow the country may elect a government which may want to tweak this economic policy of socialism and move towards another view. On secularism, it was believed that India's concept of secularism, as explained by Ratan Sharda just now, was quite different. We do not believe in negating religion. We believe in Sarvdharma Samabhav. Now the question on the table here is, what stops people from raising this debate? Because India is an evolving nation, debate should go on, but about amending the preamble once again, that is removing these two terms, how challenging can it be legally?
See, you have to understand two perspectives. Tessin spoke about basic structure of the Constitution, and the basic structure should not be altered or amended. Now, the theory of basic structure came from the Keshwananda Bharati judgment, and this same judgment was sought to be overridden, and they were trying to remove the basic structure doctrine in the 42nd Amendment. So Tessin cannot take the advantage that, oh, we are here to protect the basic structure. The 42nd Amendment was to override the judgment of the Supreme Court in the Keshwananda Bharati that gave the judgment that had established the basic structure doctrine. Second thing, about the preamble, you have to understand that the words socialist, secular and integrity, these three words were added in the preamble. Now, the fact is originally they were not there in the preamble. Nobody can dispute this fact. Now, why this insertion of these two words, socialism and secularism, in the preamble is criticized? Because it is criticized because it was introduced only as a political symbolism, and it was an attempt to align the constitutional ideals with the ruling party of the preferences.
Okay, fine. Okay.
They had any global ideas, like they wanted to come with some idea of socialism or a secularism. It was a political symbolism, and it was only inserted to align with the political party's, ruling party's preference at that time. So that is
let
the
me
reason
rephrase
an
your
opposition
question.
is done.
Yes, please
Indian, by nature,
Yes.
we are secular. By nature, when we understand socialism and everything, in our blood, the socialism also runs. But this socialism and secularism in the parliament, in the preamble, when you see, it is nothing but a political symbolism.
Fine.
That
Let me come to Tehseen quickly. Tehseen, two very clear things.
Yep.
As for socialism, your own, the Congress government later diluted its position on socialism. So much on that. As for secularism, it was inserted for purely political reasons, is what Hitesh is pointing out. Quickly, please respond and we shall conclude.
Then why integrity also? The country should not be integral. You can't choose and pick and choose. But let me give you one thing, socialism. And this is basics of economics, basic 101. Socialism equals not free markets. Some of the most socialist countries are the Scandinavian countries, where markets are absolutely free. Free markets is different from socialism and welfareism. It's basic economics. But then again, Ratanji, I have so much respect for you. He's very smartly tried to cover the two. No, the Scandinavian countries have free education, free healthcare, free insurance. They even have reservations. Why? Because that is the basis, but they're free markets. Don't confuse the two. Opening up. Yes, and welfareism is a measure of
welfare
this.
economics. It is not called socialism.
It is absolutely the most Nordic countries are the most socialist countries in terms of benefits that are given to their citizens of India. They distribute.
We are not having an economics lesson here. Come to the secular thing.
They distribute the countries well. In that,
there is a difference between socialist economy, who controls the means of production.
During the
No, the fleece of production. The fleece of production was always open up in India since 1947.
No,
it was. People were encouraged. When did the Tatas come in?
That was called commanding rights and all
How is it commanding rights?
done by the government.
I think that's
Who nationalized airlines? Who nationalized banks?
Who also
Concept of
allowed free
socialism.
steel companies
You
to
agree
come
with
in?
that?
Who allowed
Are you
free steel
agreeing
companies to come
Are
in?
you agreeing with nationalization of banks and industries, etc.?
Are you
won't
agreeing?
agree, I'm very
Are you
sure.
agreeing with free markets coming in? I agree with free
Do I
markets.
agree with 135,000
Okay,
people in the
Tehseen
jail and you
Poonawalla,
call it the
Tehseen
year
No,
of
now you've gone to jail, not
emergency?
economy.
No,
You
no,
can't
I
debate the
think there
economy
is-
with
there
you.
is
Please ask
agreement
Modi ji
on-
to make the banks.
Tehseen,
I talked of
Tehseen,
economy.
allow me.
I said very
Ratan
sadly,
Sharda ji,
you were wrong on
that
it,
is socialism.
No, Tehseen, please come to the
Nordic
secular
I
countries
was.
don't have
He's
social
Sir, we have
control.
to
That is not
conclude
government
this.
control. No,
Interrupting
no.
me.
I
No.
have done economics,
He's not done-
a
he's
postgraduate.
wrong on
Don't tell
economics.
me
The
the meaning of
Scandinavian
economics and
countries are
welfare
free
economics.
markets
Tehseen,
and
I
they
am postgraduate in
distribute their
economics.
Okay, we'll get back on this. We'll get back in another episode on this. But Tehseen, for now,
Yes.
please quickly conclude on the secularism point if you want to.
India, I agree with Hitesh.
Or else we shall conclude.
India is secular because Indians are secular,
Yes.
because Hindus are secular, and if that secularism word it's the truth. And if that secularism word reflects, and if the BJP has a problem with it, the most honorable Prime Minister who goes globally, meets the Pope, meets everyone, should have it removed.
Okay. Gentlemen, I'm afraid we've clearly overshot our time, but it has been a very, very riveting and very engaging conversation. Thank you to all of you. Hitesh Jain joining us from Mumbai. Also, Ratan Sharda ji, always gracious to join us. And Tehseen Poonawalla in the studios. Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
And viewers, let me add that this debate about the amendment to the preamble is not just an academic discussion anymore. Senior ministers have come out in favor of the proposal, as also strong views from the opposition against it. We shall keep an eye on how it transpires in the coming days. For the moment, it's a wrap up on Media Scan this weekend. Do join us next weekend with another riveting subject. Till then, namaskar.